Chris Hill Scott was one of the three co-founders of keyboard app SwiftKey. In 2008, he sold all his shares in the company for a bike. The company was sold to tech giant Microsoft in early 2016 for $250 million. Scott was said to be disillusioned with the long hours and low pay, something which is common in most startups. At its peak, Blockbuster was the biggest movie rental company in the world, generating billions in revenue and owning thousands of shops worldwide. In the year 2000, Netflix offered Blockbuster the chance to buy them for $50 million. In return, Netflix would launch Blockbuster's online and DVD by mail service. Blockbuster CEO John Antiocho declined, and now Netflix made an annual revenue of $6.77 billion in 2015, is valued at $32.9 billion, and Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy in 2010. Just before the turn of the century, Excite and not Google was the largest search engine on the internet. Google co-founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin attempted to sell Google to Excite for $1 million, which Excite declined. The pair then reduced their asking price to $750,000, which was also declined. A few years later, Excite was bought by Ask Jeeves, and Google has gone on to become one of the most valuable companies in the world. American businessman Ross Perot had the chance to buy Microsoft in 1979 for $40 to $60 million. He must have thought that the 23-year-old Bill Gates was out of his mind to have such a high asking price. Perot opted to not buy, and Microsoft is now one of the most valuable companies in the world, and Bill Gates one of the richest men in the world. Perot could have easily funded acquiring Microsoft, as his company EDS was worth around $1 billion at the time. A case of opportunity missed. Perot himself in later years admitted to this as being one of his greatest business regrets. Next time you have a great idea, make sure you patent it. Edwin Drake should have followed this principle. In 1858, extracting oil from reserves was an almost impossible task, and people used basic tools that just weren't up to the task. Drake invented the oil drill, making clean extraction easy. But he forgot to patent his creation and lost out on billions. To make matters worse, he was later fired by his company and then proceeded to lose all his money on Wall Street. There was some light at the end of the tunnel though. The state of Pennsylvania and oil barons eventually paid him to express their gratitude, but surely this amount was nowhere near the amount Edwin would have seen had he just patented his idea. AOL was once the biggest name on the internet. At its peak in 2002, they had amassed 35 million subscribers. In 2000, they merged with Time Warner in what was the largest merger in business history. The new company was worth around $350 billion. But then all of a sudden, the dot-com bubble burst, internet stocks plummeted, and about $100 billion worth of stock was wiped out completely. In 2009, Time Warner spun AOL off as its own company, and to date, the AOL Time Warner marriage is widely considered the worst merger in business history. Nolan Bushnell, founder of former video game giant Atari, was approached by young Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak to buy a third of Apple for $50,000. The Apple pair, whom Bushnell brought together at Atari, showcased the Apple I, a powerful home computer. Bushnell declined their offer as he claimed to have no interest in home computers. No matter what he says today, I'm sure a part of him wishes he did. Did you know that a third of Apple would be valued at over $100 billion today? George Lucas must have used a Jedi mind trick on senior executives at 20th Century Fox when he somehow persuaded them to sell all merchandising rights for all Star Wars movies for just $20,000. Not only this, but the studio agreed to finance all his movies and handed over all the rights to Lucas. They probably didn't bank on the Star Wars franchise going on to be one of the biggest multi-billion-dollar franchises in history. This was a bad business decision of galactic proportions. Sticking to George Lucas, but this time he's on the wrong side. Lucas sold Pixar to Steve Jobs for $5 million in 1986, which at the time seemed like a good deal. However, fast forward 2 decades and Mr. Jobs eventually agreed to sell Pixar to Disney for a whopping $7.4 billion. I guess you win some, you lose some, George. He probably doesn't care as he was raking the money in from the Star Wars franchise, but I'm sure a part of him must be wishing he kept Pixar. In 1962, Decca Records conducted a 2-hour audition with the Beatles but didn't sign the band. Decca Records missed out on the opportunity to sign one of the most iconic names in music history. The 4-man band went on to huge success and are the best-selling band in history with estimated sales of over 600 million records. The group were also inducted into the Rock Hall of Fame in 1988 and are a huge part of pop culture. I hope that Decca got themselves some better talent spotters in the years that followed this decision.